Good morning, everyone. This is Mortgage Pros 411. I'm Audrey Boissonou with my co-host Kevin Casey, and today we are joined by Ms. Megan Anderson. How are you, sweets?
I am doing fantastic. Can't complain. I'm in the Florida and I'm soaking up the sunshine.
Oh, Florida. Yeah. Last time I
Wait,
was in,
wait, I thought you guys had a freezing spell there for a bit. Or was that only
We
Atlanta?
did. And that was quite funny because, I live in a van. So I took the van from Wyoming to Florida and I'm like, oh, this will be great because the problem in Wyoming is it's so cold and I have lithium batteries, so they won't charge if the
Mm.
temperature gets too low. So I was like, this isn't working. Gotta go to Florida. Came to Florida and then we have snow. And so, yeah,
where
it's
are
been
you in
quite the
Florida now?
experience. What?
Where are you in Florida?
I'm near Jacksonville in this place called Green Cove Springs.
Wow. Well, I was in Florida a number of years in a row, and the last time it was so freaking cold, and I'm like, it is January for God's sake, but I'm in Florida. It's supposed to be warm, which
Yeah.
just to anyone who doesn't know is a fallacy, as evidenced by Megan also confirming that it's freaking freezing cold there. So, with all that being said, welcome. Just a shout out to the Chrisman Media Group, of which we are a member, and make sure you look at their lineups to see what else is available. Just a little update because, as always, I was telling Kevin this morning. So there are weeks that I look at the schedule. I'm like, holy schmoly, there's a lot going on economically, right? The reports coming out, etc. And it wasn't until today that I'm like, oh God, every freaking week is busy, or most weeks are busy because it's the same every month. Duh. Okay. Now I don't consider myself to be particularly stupid, but I felt stupid in that moment. So here we go. Tomorrow we're going to have the Fed meeting concluding. So they're meeting as we speak, and Uncle Jerome is working with his little compadres to figure out what is happening next. And there is a 99% chance that they will pause. We will not have any rate increase or decrease. So we'll see what happens really. He'll give a statement afterwards, which is the most important part of all this. What is he saying? What are they talking about? Will happen next, et cetera, et cetera. So tune in, kids, because that's always it could be a market mover depending on what he starts talking about, right? You have any other
Yes.
insight into that, Megan?
It could definitely be a market mover. We're going to be paying attention to what is his overall tone.
Yep.
And you know what kind of stinks is, they're giving their rate decision tomorrow, but we get the Fed's favorite measure of inflation on Friday with
Yep.
PCE. And
Hmm.
so we're kind of looking, maybe they dropped some clues, maybe they got a little peek at it beforehand and we can tell a little bit. But you're right in, at 2:30 when the press conference happens. Well, we at MBS Highway, I will say 100% we think that they're going to pause, right? Maybe their tone changes after PCE. We'll see what ultimately happens there. But ultimately, we think that they're going to pause, and that's just going to be that. But that Q&A session, that's when, things can get very volatile in the market. I think if he pauses, there's not really going to be much surprise in the market because that's, what the market is forecasting and kind of pricing in. But it's that Q&A where we get more intel. So we will be listening.
I find that Q&A to be a little ridiculous sometimes. The questions that people ask are so dumb. I mean, let me just say dumb. And then he'll answer it and he'll be very clear. And then some other ding dong comes by and tries to go at it from the same, the same question, different angle slightly. And I'm like, okay, people, he's not going to answer that. He made that clear. I mean, my favorite one was when he was asked whether he was going to resign when the new administration came in, and his one word, no, no.
Yeah.
So wait,
I
wait, can you clarify no?
I was laughing so hard. I'm like, could you be more clear? But no, apparently he wasn't clear enough because again, they come at him again and again, and I'm like, okay, seriously? So anyway, I find that Q&A either really entertaining or really frustrating because you get a bunch of people who should know more than they do since they're writing for some fairly prestigious or reporting for some fairly prestigious organizations. And I'm like, this is the best we could come up with. All right. So before we get to PCE on Friday, we have GDP and pending home sales tomorrow, which, again, that can be something that can move the market. So again, what is your take on whether or not the Fed is getting a preview of these reports? They have to be, right? The PCE, they've got to know about that on Wednesday when it's coming out on Friday.
That's against the law.
What?
Yeah, it's hard to
privileged
say.
information.
I mean, likely they
a lot.
probably do get some input, right? Whether it's from the report itself or talking to the people that are publishing the report. Regardless, I think that they're probably getting some intel, even if they don't know, the headline and core numbers that are going to be coming out, but they have an inkling, I am sure of it.
Well, you know what? He's probably got some deal with someone at BLS, and they go to lunch. And if you order, if the guy from BLS orders French fries, it's one thing, and if he orders tater tots, it's another thing. It's nothing needs to be said. They just need the message to be conveyed one way or another. So, okay,
That is friggin' brilliant. I bet that stuff goes on.
Probably.
I've obviously been watching a lot of stupid Netflix spy shows lately. Oh my God. Okay, so in other news, the 10-year, thank God, has been heading down. So it started off, well, the first time I looked at it this morning, it was at 4.57. And by the time I looked at it right before we came on, it was at 4.55. So that's better. And definitely off the 4.6, whatever it was last week, which was making everyone nervous. So anyway, pray people that we keep that going in the right direction and just hang on to your boots. And what's the thing we like to say, Kevin?
You see a rate you like,
lock it in.
Wise words.
I know. We've been singing that little jingle since 2020. Do you know we are coming up on our 5-year anniversary of doing this show?
No way.
Yeah.
Are you serious? It's been
Yeah.
that long.
5
50
years.
weeks a year. And just to dispel any thoughts in anyone, we recently found out that people thought we made money doing this. No, we've spent tens of thousands of dollars paying for this shit ourselves. So we don't make a penny, and we do it because we love our industry. And so there you go. All right, with all that being said, let's talk a little bit about the economy, because it's my favorite thing. And sometimes we have guests on here and then we have to, kind of talk about their subject matter, and you can swing between this and AI. So we're happy about that. So yesterday, let's start with Deepseek. So we had this company out of China called Deepseek came out with a new product. The whole market just went to HE double toothpicks in a few seconds, and stocks did terribly and bonds did great because there was a flight to safety. And the question was, why, right? So I have a child who is an AI researcher and engineer. So I had a chat with him because he's done a lot of research on this and he's actually working on these models, etc. So I was asked, so I'll give you a brief synopsis, because why does this matter to us? It impacts the economy, right? And so when it's moving the markets, that's why I'm interested. And so I'm going to keep this super high level because that's
clear. The economy, the markets are not the economy.
It impacts the markets impact the economy. Didn't I say that? God. Anyway, so I'm just going to give you just a quick rundown of what he was telling me, which I found fascinating. I was like, shoot, we should have him on the show too. Okay, so the difference is the new buzz in AI is reasoning models. So it's in a normal model, it predicts what it's coming next. In a reasoning model, it does the same thing, but it builds on top of it like a human. So like if you put into the Chatgpt, how do I apply for a visa? It doesn't just give you, a reasoning model doesn't just give you the steps to applying for a visa. It's thinking about what else you're going to need to know. So it's thinking more like a human, which can either make you more comfortable and happy or freak you out. You choose.
No, it's great. Like I've started using AI now for asking questions that I would normally have gone to Google for and done a whole bunch of research after they gave me all these different links. When you just go to Chatgpt, it gives you like step by step of what you're looking for. And then you can ask follow-up questions and it bangs out the answer like in a couple seconds. It's so much faster.
But I just want to remind you, because this is terribly important, and Megan will confirm this a million times. Whatever answer you get, double check it, because
Yep.
if it doesn't know the answer, it can make it up. So with that being said, so he was also telling, I said, what is the big deal? Like, why is everyone freaking out? Because, and in my head, I was thinking, okay, it's China, right? Like, I don't trust, if they don't trust TikTok, why would they trust a search engine from China? And he was telling me it's different. So in academia, there is no such thing, or in AI academia, there's no such thing as stealing of ideas. They all share, right? It's open.
Open model.
There's
Yep.
nothing proprietary. So when they say open, you know, it's supposed to be.
Mhm.
So when you publish an AI technology research paper, it's under an MIT license. I didn't know any of this, saying it can be used for anything, open source, anyone can use it. And but it absolves them of any liability that might come out of this. So you can't sue them and say, I got the wrong answer from you. And so just be aware of that. So there's no US AI and China AI and Norway AI, Megan. There is just AI, and everyone's working together, right, for the greater good. He said the AI race is different from the space race, the arms race, where everyone's competing. AI race, everyone is racing together, like towards the greater good. That's what's been happening. Now you have these companies that are profiting, like ChatGPT, et cetera, and they're afraid of the competition, right? So he was telling me, so the people who aren't working at places like ChatGPT or Anthropic, those people are freaking out, right? Because they've gotten very comfortable. They're used to endless money. They're used to being, you know, just it's very rich environment because the VCs have just thrown billions and billions and billions of dollars at this with no requirement that they have any return on investment, right? So they're freaked out. The reason the market sold off yesterday, I think, is because what this new AI model is showing is they spent $5 million to develop this thing, where the other models, okay, so he gave me some good examples, right? He was saying that, okay, hang on, I'm looking for my actual numbers. Okay, so here, let me just go back up for a second, because it's so much, but I'm really shortcutting it, I swear to God. So
Hey,
he was saying that the model ChatGPT, the estimate is it 03, that model, it costs between 80 and $100 million to build and train. And Deepseek did it for $5 million. That's a huge difference. Huge, huge, huge. So now these investors are looking at this going, well, what the hell are we doing? Like, we don't need to spend all this extra money. We could spend way, 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 way less. So it's about efficiency. It's about doing it faster, better, cheaper. They're usually using less expensive components, which that was another huge concern with these AI models, is they're so expensive and they require really expensive
chips.
chips, et cetera, et cetera. And that's part of the problem. So
Yeah, and what I got out of from yesterday was they're basically saying now is that, wait, this is a good thing for everybody.
yes, yes, yes. That's the take.
Well, it's going to push us. It's going to push us because at the end of the day, you know, you say it's everybody working towards the greater good. And I think it's, you know, who's going to come out first, and it's a race to get there and who's going to stay on top. And the reason that everybody got so scared yesterday is because, I mean, think about it. We have these overinflated tech companies like NVIDIA, right?
Yep.
Making these really expensive chips. And then all of a sudden, you know, and we were limiting the chips that China could actually buy to make it so that they couldn't get on top. And then all of a sudden, what do? Well, they use the resources, they use the chips that they can, and they develop something that does reasoning, as they say, better than, say, ChatGPT. And they did it again at a fraction of the cost. So that's why we saw NVIDIA stock tumble yesterday. That's why we saw the flight to safety. And overall, I think that it could really be a good thing, because again, it shows us who's going to work harder, who's going to put in the hours, who's going to work harder, and who's going to make this happen. And it's scary. It is actually, you know, quite scary. But I think it's an exciting time at the same time.
Well, so from the inside on the AI track with my son and his group of friends in San Francisco, who are all these, shall I say, tech nerds. Anyway, they are excited. I mean, this is exciting. This is going to breed competition. It's going to make it, it's all about efficiency going forward. And so, to your point, a lot of these tech companies were way overvalued. Apparently, ChatGPT is still not making money. And they've had like $1 zillion, that's a real number, I'm sure, thrown at them. And they are, again, this is going to make people be more thoughtful about money, more thoughtful about efficiency, and it's going to drive this forward. And again, back to, the race towards the greater good, that's how this starts out. And in academia, that is still the focus. Then you get these companies that get in there, and then it becomes all about profit, and all that goes flying out the window, right? So
Well, originally, it was all designed to be nonprofit, that this was supposed to be, that these companies all poured billions of dollars into this idea, on the idea that this is for the greater good and it needs to be a nonprofit. And then someone also decided, hey, wait, I can make a profit off this. And so,
yeah. So it's going to be really important to see how these American companies respond to this. If we start doing things like banning this company or banning certain things, it is not going to be good. We need to embrace this competition so we all get better, because we're all going to benefit from that. And again, if you have a few companies that were overvalued and were not weren't really maximizing the assets that they had, then it's time for them to clean it up or get out, right? This is how a free market works, is competition. You don't limit it. And so again, from my son, who is a credible source, he's it was really interesting for me as a parent to have him walk me through this, because he won an award for some research he did last spring and presented at a tech conference. And this morning I'm like, okay, the real testament to do you understand your material is, can you teach it and put it in a way that someone else can understand it? And so anyway, it's good to hear though that this is not such a huge problem. It's a market disruption, which is a healthy thing. And I think overall it's good. But with all that being said, Megan, we were talking about your course that you had promoted on the last time you were on here, and it's out of date now. So tell us about that.
Well, I mean, AI is always changing. And since making that course, they've come out with various new models on Chatgpt. Now, the basics of it are still the same. You still need to understand the various elements of a prompt when it comes to using these large language models, whether it's Deepseek, Gemini, Chatgpt. It's really important to kind of understand those. But, I'm a Chatgpt fan because that is what I learned on. And they've come out with some new things that I think are really quite awesome, and people haven't quite utilized them as of yet. One thing that they recently came out with is the ability to have tasks. So one thing that I set up is, every morning at 8 a.m., I want you to send me all the latest articles that would be important to loan originators. What could impact the market? What is out there? What's being talked about? So every day at 8 a.m., it sends me an email. Hey, it's ready for you to click. I click on it, and then it loads up all the articles. And that's been really helpful because, as you guys know, on MBS Highway, we come out with our morning update video every single morning. And while news is heavy this week, like a couple weeks ago, there was like nothing coming out. And so that was really helpful in having that. And so I've really enjoyed that.
This is Chatgpt.
that is brilliant.
Is this a paid version, or does any version do that?
I think you might have to have the paid version. Yeah.
Okay. And how much does it cost a month approximately?
It's $20 a month. They do have another version, like a higher version. I think it's $200 a month, but I wouldn't say that anyone on this call, even myself, I'm not at that point where I need to get that version. But for $20 a month, I mean, this is incredible, because not only can you do the task one where it's going to do whatever. Another instance that I'll tell you that I use the task one for is, I'm a big reader. I'm always reading a book. I'm always writing, like I'm working on writing a book right now. And oftentimes when I'm reading, I'm like, man, I don't know what that word is, right? Or it'll spark an idea in my head where it's like, oh man, I want to research that, later, but I obviously don't want to put the book down right now to go on a research whatever. And so I will just tell it, hey, your job is that I'm just going to put notes in here. It's going to be like words that I don't know the definition of. I want you to put it in a sentence that's applicable to me, so I'm going to better understand it. And then there's also going to be concepts that I'm going to tell you that I want you to do the research on and, get me further readings on that. And that happens every Sunday. It sends me that every Sunday morning. So when I'm having my coffee, I get, here's the definition of this word in a sentence that's applicable to my life. So I'm more likely to keep that in my brain. And then it does the research for me on all the different kind of ideas that are sparked while I'm reading. And that really just compounds everything. And I find that to be extremely helpful.
My God, that's
I do.
incredible.
Well, I do something similar to that, but I just have my phone nearby and I just say, "Hey Siri, what's the definition of something?" which she's answering right now.
Right.
So
which is nice. It will give me the definition in that second, which is good because I'm reading it, and I can understand it. But then it's always good to have it come up again. And so it'll come up again when it sends me.
Yeah, I like the idea of it coming up again, because it's like, I'll look up the word and then I forget that I ever looked it up because it's too fast and easy. So
a second. So when you're reading, what do you do in that moment? You say something into your phone?
Yeah,
I just talk to it. I do a lot of just talking to it because it takes a lot longer to type it out. And so I'll pull it up, and I even have it now on my phone where, like, on my screen right here, I just have a little Chatgpt now. So it brings me immediately to Chatgpt. So I don't even have to find the app or do anything like that.
you can talk to it.
And I just talk to it. Yep, I just talk to it. Now, prompting is important, but you have to understand these large language models, they're getting more human as time goes on. Like, I will admit, I downloaded Deepseek and I started playing around with it, comparing it to Chatgpt. And I do really like the reasoning that Deepseek has. Like, before it gives you the answer, it goes through the entire thought process that it has. And it's like, you're sitting there and you're like, holy shit, like, this is like a human. Like, when you think about the process of when you have an idea versus when you get a project done, or, that process, it is eerily similar.
Okay, so how, again, in that moment, so it's giving you this reasoning and this process. How do you cull through that to see, okay, does that make sense? Is that right? Is it wrong? Like, how do you vet that?
Well, when it comes to Deepseek, I'm not exactly sure because I haven't really been playing around with it too much. And really the questions that I was asking it was like, tell me about yourself, trying to gain some more intel on its development and, all just the little questions that popped up with all of these articles and it taking the entire market by storm. But on Chatgpt or just any language model, large language model that you're utilizing, I think that it's important to first start out with things that you do know the answer to, or you have a general idea about it, because, you're right, you do have to double check everything, because it's only going to give an answer based off of the database that it has. And that can be very flawed. We saw that when, people were using Gemini asking, if I'm sad, what should I do? And it said, eat rocks, or, to keep your cheese on the pizza, use edible glue, right? It's because it was pulling it from Reddit threads. That's where it was getting that knowledge. And it doesn't know if it's lying. It is not human in that regard, where we know when we're lying, or we know,
Or be lied to.
I'm kind of 70% sure that might be the answer, right? It doesn't have those capabilities. So
I want to test something I did on Chatgpt this week.
Okay.
So, since the new 10.03 came out, I don't know how many years ago, Audrey, the new 10.03 been out now?
Don't ask me.
I was like 4, 5, 8, 10 years. I don't remember now. I still am challenged with it. One of the challenges I had with an application this week was that client had multiple properties. And so as I'm entering the data into the application, I'm like, okay, well, one house is a second home. Like, I get that. Okay. And one house is the primary residence. This house is going to be their investment property. And then there's this other house which, like, they're just holding it. And so when you enter a loan application, there's this property status and it has H, S, PS, and R. And I've always knew that R was rental, and I, couldn't remember which. I knew PH was probably pending sale, and I kind of, okay, but I always just left it blank and let my processor fill it out because he was the expert at that. And so on this one, I was like, this is a really important client. I wanted everything done. And I've many times Googled what are the property status symbols, because all we ever get is S, PS, H, and R. And there's no like, what are these? And so I've Googled, and I've never been able to find the answer when I've done my Google searches. And then I give up. It's like, this is not worth it to do that much research when I could just have my processor fill in the blank and move on.
Right.
So this time I decided to ask Chatgpt. And I'm going to ask the audience to confirm the answers at Chatgpt. So if they could text me the answers. So the first question I asked GPT was, what does H stand for property status on the universal loan application?
They can
So
put it in
I love people.
chat.
Yeah, put it in the chat. I want everybody to put it, what they think the correct answer is. I'm not seeing any chats. No one's.
One.
All
Hold.
right. Hold, held, yeah, okay. Home, okay, yeah.
Holy. Humid. Humongous.
Yeah. Okay, so you'll be surprised to learn that H stands for sold, according to ChatGPT.
Okay, so
then I said, whoa, wait a minute. If H stands for sold, what does S stand for? Okay, guys, what do you guys think that S stands for? Put in your chat.
And if you think he's totally wrong, just let him know.
Yeah.
Second, sold.
Everyone's saying sold. I've heard seconds.
All right. Okay.
Someone put up something quicker there.
You
Hold on.
see what Yan says here?
Okay, so according to ChatGPT,
yeah. Hang on, because Yan has a really great explanation here. He said, hold. Unlike coming soon, active or active under contract, the hold status is an off-market status. That's a great explanation of that. So thank you.
Off market, yeah, off market. That's a good one. But why H for off market? Come on. Could they have come up with a better letter? Who knows? Anyhow, the answer according to ChatGPT for S was it's pending sale. And I'm like, no, PS should be pending sale. What do you think that PS stands for?
According to Yan, S is sold, if is sold, PS is presently listed for sale, and R is if it's rented or will be rented.
Right, but what does H stand for?
Hold, right?
Yeah.
So. Everyone got that. I mean, we're the only ding dongs who didn't know that, apparently. So
you know what you could do though? ChatGPT and all this, what you could do is you could build your own custom GPT. That is where essentially, imagine you walk into a library, right? And on the bookshelf are all the books. So like when you go to ChatGPT and you open up that little chat box, that's using its database, right? But you can build your own custom GPT where you house the documents in there. So that houses the definition of all the things you're talking about and whatever else it is that you want to put in there to ask questions or whatever the case may be. And then it's right because you can limit it to only using the database that you've provided for it or the knowledge base.
So has anyone figured out how to put the Fannie Mae guidelines into ChatGPT?
Oh, you could build a custom GPT, you guys. That's
an easy way to do that. That would.
So I'll show you one that I built out to help us with the morning update video, and I'm just beginning these. You can actually make these where they're completely automated. So like we're about to have the Fed again, right? So what I did is I built a custom GPT to help us with the morning update video where its knowledge base is all the Fed press releases, their statements, their economic projections, right? It's basically everything that the Fed has come out with. And that is its knowledge base. So now I can come in here and I can say things like, okay, how has the language changed in today's statement versus the previous? Or how has the statement, the tone of voice changed in the latest one versus the beginning of the year? And it's going to come through and its knowledge base is strictly what I have provided for it. And it's going to lay it out for me.
Wow.
So, I mean, there are so many different ways. As a loan officer, like if you're listening to this and if you guys have any ideas on how you could implement this or have questions if something's possible, put it in the chat box. But what I would love to see a lot of originators use this for is, everybody's using AI at this point in time. Why don't you build a knowledge base of all the questions that you get asked all the time? Not only create social media videos from them to keep your content up to date and be providing value, but upload that knowledge base into your own custom GPT. So now when they have questions, they go to the custom GPT, it's 9 p.m. Hey, I had a question about this. It pulls it from the knowledge base, and now you're improving the customer experience as well.
Okay, so there's a couple things. So number one in the chat, Drew said that S is super sold, which I thought was funny. But Rick says, don't do the Fannie Mae seller guide. It's so poorly written, you couldn't rely on the answers. So that's interesting. Holy guacamole. I want to play with that one before we start using it as the gospel truth, it sounds like. Yeah. So, but this is incredible. Like,
oh, it's so cool.
So incredible. And again, it's so funny. I sat down at the end of the year and I figured out, what guests do we have? How many times were they on? You were in the top, like we had you on the most, and it's because there were developments that kept coming. Well, you were one of like 3 people that we had on like 3 times, I think. And it's because there were so many changes that kept coming, right? Mm-hmm. But also because I love you so much.
Yeah, I think that was it too.
It was, yeah, my auntie Audrey.
It is, but it is because the market just keeps shifting. I mean, not market, all of the technology, all of the information, all of it is just nonstop change. So, which is exciting. I mean, some people don't like change. I think it's so exciting. So it is something we just stay on top of. We check in with people who know something, like you, knew a lot of things. And I love how you connect it back to the mortgage business. It's not just like you're some AI person or this person. You understand how it integrates into what we're doing on the ground, which is critically important, right? So anyway, okay. So what are other applications you're seeing out there with all of this? What are people doing with Chatgpt?
I mean, there's so many different use cases for it. I'll tell you a little bit about some of them. So I do some consulting work on the side, right? And I've been working with this title company, and they're a very small team. I mean, their marketing team is one girl, and she also does sales at the same time. And, then there's a few other people that are in sales, but they just sit with the marketing team as well. So let's say there's 3 people total to ultimately help with marketing. So they wanted help building out their marketing strategy and, their tone of voice and their brand and yada, yada. So we used ChatGPT to help with that. We took all the content that they had, we took all their texts from their website and asked it, what would you say is our tone of voice? What would you say, kind of building this avatar of what their brand is. And then from there, we built out again a custom GPT where we put in it all of their marketing material, their brand guidelines, their, hex codes, all the stuff that is needed to create marketing material. And so that way, when this one girl that's out of office that does everything for marketing, someone else can step in and keep the brand tone of voice in a similar line, right? Because it's all part of that knowledge base, and they can quickly say, hey, here's a blog post on this. Can you make sure it fits our brand identity? And within seconds, it can spit out something that now is keeping them in line with their brand strategy, their brand tone of voice, and who they are. So that's an instance in that. And also from a perspective of being a consultant, what is really helpful is I take our transcripts from all of our past meetings. I have a custom GPT built out just for our transcripts from our meetings, and I use it all the time. Hey, this is what I was thinking about covering in our next session. Does that fit with what the client was looking for and what our long-term goals are? And so I use it to make sure that I am on target every single time with hitting what it is that they want to cover and what we want to accomplish at the end of the day. And so it really just depends. And then at MBS Highway, as I mentioned, I'm helping build out stuff to help us with that morning update video, because it's a stressful time in the morning to get these reports. I mean, sometimes they don't come out until 10 a.m. Eastern. And the next thing you know, we have to turn that around in a second to get that out to everybody before everyone's yelling about where the morning update video is. And so it can be really stressful. And oftentimes when you're in a crunch scenario, you know, some things get missed at times. And then it's like, oh man, we should have caught that. So what this can do, and what I'm learning how to do now, is to take these custom GPTs and you can use it to where now it'll automate the process. So it'll actually go to the Fed website, it'll pull the transcript, upload it to its knowledge base, and recap it. And I can take examples of, hey, this is what we wrote as a recap the last, you know, how many years we can go back. That's built into its knowledge base. So now it's keeping the tone of voice, it's keeping the structure, and oftentimes a lot of the stuff is the same, right? Like if we're covering existing home sales, for example, or PCE or CPI, I mean, we're looking at the same numbers every single time for the most part.
Right.
And so now it can automatically pull those, automatically recap it, automatically even create the graphs that we need to create. And so that's another instance where it can be ultimately really powerful. And then another example, this is again from kind of a mortgage company perspective, is, you know, it depends on the company you're at and whether you're, you know, an originator, a broker, or whatever the case may be. Oftentimes, in some companies, there can be a little bit of hesitation from the originator when it comes to promoting themselves on social media, because some companies, they're not as lenient about it. You know, you have to submit it to marketing, it needs to get approval before you can even post it. And that kind of doesn't incentivize anyone to want to do it. The marketing team doesn't want to look at all these annoying little posts coming from everybody. And then on top of that, the originator's like, oh my gosh, I sent that to you a week ago and now it's not as relevant, right? So why am I even trying at the end of the day? Yeah. And so building it out, you know, where you create the knowledge base of, hey, your job is to keep the brand voice in line with these social media captions and make sure that it has, you know, the NMLS ID, has these whatever, all the things that it needs to have to be compliant. And that way, at least when the originator then goes to submit it to marketing, it can be a faster approval process because it's already ran through this thing to make sure that it matches the tone of voice and has everything that is required in order for this post to be compliant. So that's instances where that can be really helpful as well. I think from the individual originator perspective and how they can use AI, I mean, you really just got to dive into what are things that you're doing on a consistent basis. Are they one-off activities or are these reoccurring activities? And if they're reoccurring activities, is there some aspect of it that we can make more automated using AI? And so it's really just sitting down, going through all of those activities, looking at the ones that are reoccurring, identifying if we can add AI to some aspect of those. And then it turns into, okay, so if we want to automate something, do we have the data now? Do we have the data? Do we have the knowledge base that we need in order to make this, you know, integrated with AI? And oftentimes, you know, honestly, I think that if you can think it up, it can probably be integrated with AI. And
can you help the who is it, the BSA, the
BLS
come out with a better jobs report with the AI?
Well, did you see? Okay, so this morning, Barry Habib talked about how he sent President Trump, he was invited to send President Trump a letter suggesting certain things as far as making the reports more accurate, et cetera. And so I was texting with him this morning, and it sounds like he'll share those results. And I would think that, I mean, if he was invited to share these thoughts, that maybe they'll go somewhere. So, you know, of all the things that are coming out of the White House right now, I'd be thrilled to see some improvements to BLS on the list, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
I think it's also, there's a couple of things. So going back to what you were saying about working with these marketing departments, I have heard so many marketing people be freaked out by AI and what
they're afraid.
Well, you were saying that they're like, how do we integrate this and embrace this and make it part of what we're doing and make us better? Is that like,
well, I will say no. Of the companies that I talk to, the marketing team is completely terrified, but they're terrified because they think that AI is going to take their job. And honestly, it is going to take some of their jobs because you can do a lot more stuff utilizing AI, especially on the marketing front, content creation, all of that. I mean, AI has made it so much easier to actually achieve that and do it. But from a marketing team perspective, I mean, there's endless stuff that you could do, right?
Yeah.
So I think it just
makes you more productive.
Yeah, it opens it up to being able to do bigger tasks, and ones that are probably more fulfilling. But I think initially they're freaked out because they think it's going to take over their job. And that's why it can be so beneficial to have somebody like myself come in who's a third party and to get everybody on kind of mutual ground of this is what we're going to do with this is what the marketing team is comfortable with. Okay, let's run with that to start. And then I think once they start to see it, they begin to get excited about it, because every person I talk to that's on the marketing team, that their job is sitting there helping create these posts or approving these posts for originators, they don't like doing that job. It's tedious, and it's the same stuff over and over. And so I really think that AI really can come in and solve a lot of this stuff.
So it's kind of like translators. Translators are all worried when Google Translate came out, and they were worried that, oh my God, we're all going to lose our jobs because they can just talk into a phone. But the reality, they haven't lost their jobs. That actually more people are now engaged in learning other languages, and there's more exchange of people. Like you'll notice, like Netflix movies, there's a lot more scenes where someone's speaking another language, and we're getting used to that. When before they would never do that, they would always dub it over, or they, now they just have the translation on the bottom, and we'll just read what they're saying, and we're totally good with them speaking various different languages during the movie. So it's interesting how life just kind of evolves.
I think this AI fear translates to a lot of industries, but definitely we've heard a lot about that in the LO space as well, where loan officers are worried that they're going to be replaced by technology and the computer that can do everything. And in my opinion, we're never going to be replaced, because the loans I'm doing, the loans Kevin's doing right now, we are not focused on Fannie Freddie 30-year fix. Everyone fits in the same little vanilla box. We are doing the hairy, difficult, complicated loans, and we're busy. And that is, in my opinion, the focus for 2025 is what loan can you do that nobody else wants to deal with? It doesn't fit into their team burn them and churn 'em model, where the LO really doesn't even know their borrowers, and you either fit in this little box that's easy and digestible for a computer, or they kick it out, right? We want those borrowers. Those are the borrowers I want. But how do we make, as LOs, how do we help AI or use AI so it can help us just be better? Not replace us, but improve what we're doing, what we know, the process, etc. So how do we integrate that more? And that's what I'd like to see the focus on, is forget about replacing anyone. I mean, yeah, we need to replace the ding dongs who shouldn't be in the business. Sorry, get out. Honestly, that's how I feel. So those people can go, but the rest of us who are, listening, the people who tune into this every week because they want to learn something new or hear some new thing, or, have something reconfirmed for them, those are the people who are dedicated to the business. Okay, so for us, what, how do we use this to improve our businesses? And that's what I'm interested in.
I mean, there's so many different ways. Again, I think that you have to, one, no one's going to get away with not using AI. So there was a Harvard study out there, and they studied people that were using AI versus people that weren't. And those that were utilizing AI, they completed 12.2% more tasks on average. Those that were using AI completed tasks more quickly, 25.1% completed tasks more quickly. And here's the big thing, those that were using AI, 40% higher quality. So again, this isn't going to replace us. Remember, at the end of the day, these are machines. They lack that shared humanity that we all have. That it's just, I don't think that it's going to get there. And it just isn't. It's not humans, at the end of the day. So we have that empathetic side, that humanity side that it will never be able to take over. So stop being afraid of it and start thinking about it in ways of, okay, again, break down your tasks. What is it that you do on a daily basis? Well, I prospect. Well, I do marketing. Well, I do this, I do that. I have to build relationships, right? And take all of that and start with the tasks that you don't like doing. So for me, listen, I love doing our live webinars, our interviews, the podcasts that I do. I love sitting down and talking to people and having these kinds of conversations. But what I really hated doing was editing it and turning it into micro content, because listen, it's fun while you're sitting here having the conversation, right? But to go back and have to re-listen to it in slow-mo and pause it and write down the timestamp, play it, pause it, and then open it up in the editor and sit there and chop it into micro clips and then put the captions on it and then try and think of a good hook to hook people in to watch that little clip for social media. It's important because it leverages more people to go back and watch the content, right? So it makes it beneficial to do so, but I don't like it. And every time it would turn into, hey, if John from my team isn't available to do it, it's probably not going to get done because I don't like doing it.
Right.
And so I just had to be honest.
Well, we haven't done it.
Well,
That's
then
exactly why
you
we
think,
haven't done
okay, so this is a problem.
Mhm.
It's part of my business, but it's a problem. It's a pain point right there, right? So how can I find a solution? Well, first you have to research, what are the various AI platforms out there? And I can help you with this if you need help navigating anything. But one that I found that I really liked for the podcast, for example, was Opus Clip, because all I had to do was go in and upload the entire episode and it would chop it into micro content. And given, like, if I had someone that I was paying to do it, I'm sure it would be a little bit higher quality, but I mean, it got the job done and it did it very well. And it's actually improved quite a bit now. So that solved that solution or that problem for me, right? And then my own life and my own example, what was another problem that I had or something that I do on a continual basis? What was the morning update video? What was the pain point there? Man, it is stressful AF every morning, right? And you just got to perform. You got to show up, you got to perform, you got to do it, you got to understand it, all this stuff. And so what did I do? Build custom GPTs to ultimately help with that, pull that information, and also just help me digest it and understand it, right? And it helps when someone new from the team comes on and they don't know what any of these reports mean, then they can sit there and they can ask questions, right? How do I figure out this calculation? How do I do this? It's all built into its knowledge base. Great. Now we're not taking extra effort from, people like Dan or Barry to teach this because it's already uploaded in this knowledge base. And honestly, in the morning, you don't have time to sit there and teach someone, hand holding them, walking them through the process because it's a time crunch. And oftentimes I would find that a lot of people would feel uncomfortable asking because of that time crunch. And this allows them to be curious and go in on their own time when they feel comfortable and be able to ask these questions and learn. And so that's what I think everyone needs to do. What needs help? What is a pain point? Is it your marketing? Is it your customer experience? Is it, just what is it? Identify those pain points, and then there's a solution that we can find on top of that using AI.
So we have a comment here from Leela. She says underwriters were not replaced by LP or desktop underwriters, which is true. And I've had files where where I've had the computer system, the automated system, read it wrong and have an issue. So if you think you're running this AI model that's giving you an approval that's infallible because it read your W-2s and it read the tax, it read all this stuff, and then you find out later it missed something, and then you've already released contingencies, that could be a problem. So there are so many places where a human is important. And also, she also had a request, can Megan do a webinar on how to create a custom GPT? Like, how long would it take somebody who isn't adept at this kind of thing to learn how to do that? Is it difficult?
It is actually very easy. You do first have to understand the basic elements of prompting in order to do it effectively. And I do host quarterly calls where we go over a certain task. So like one would be creating a custom GPT. Another one might be improving our customer experience, creating our AI clone, or whatever the case may be. So if you guys are interested in doing something like that or learning more about those, just text Megan to 33777. So that's Megan, MEGAN, to 33777. Now you will end up, we kind of pulled this episode together just a couple days ago. So you're going to end up getting a a thing with some prompts on it that doesn't correlate to this episode, but that'll at least give me your contact information. So that way I can keep you up to date with the next workshop that I will host. And the custom GPT, I think, is definitely a great place to start because it, one, helps you understand prompting, which is really important to get higher quality outputs. And then you have something already built out that you can implement into your process. And it's something that can be repeatable. And I definitely recommend people build these out because, especially even if you're using it right now, let's say you're using it to help with your marketing. Well, every time you go in and there's a new chat window where you're like, write a video script for this, you have to tell it time and time again, you are a loan officer, write it in this tone of voice. This is a good example, in order to get a quality output. But you don't have to do that with the custom GPT. You just go to that same GPT every single time. I'll tell you another GPT that I have that I absolutely love. So I told you I've been writing, and I've been writing for a long time. Like when I was a little girl, I started with my journal. Since I was like 4, I've been writing and keeping a journal, and I write every single day. So I took my journal entries for the last 3 years and uploaded it into a custom GPT, and I called it Meg's Therapist. And I use this thing all the time. Hey, I'm struggling with this. Can you help me find a solution? It'll pull examples of other times I've gone through something similar and I did an awesome job and overcame it. I used it to help create my 2025 goals and what I should focus on, using its knowledge base of everything in the past. It's incredible. I think everyone needs to build out custom GPTs that are applicable to you.
Wow, that's amazing. Okay, so Yan had a comment in here, and he said, the problem I found that Chatgpt makes a lot of mistakes, so it's good to use it as a base and then grow the subject from there. Otherwise, it pulls information from a knowledge base and outside sources, especially if you have the paid version and it's searching the web for answers. And so you covered this originally, which was make sure that when you start using this, that you're using it to ask it questions you know the answer to, so that you have a sense of, is it right, is it wrong, like, make sure that and then the sourcing, I'm big on that, obviously.
You can also shut that off. Like, I don't know if you have, oh no, it's not, it's gonna fail right now. You can shut that off. So like here's where you would go to build out your custom GPT. And it sounds like, Jan, that you have a custom GPT going. You can shut it off so that it can't search the web. And that way it's only using the files that you have uploaded in its knowledge base. And so that could be really helpful as well and kind of keep it locked down.
But what if you want it to search to the web? Like you want that resource.
Well, if you want it to do it, then you just click it. But let's say that you build out a custom GPT to help with, new client onboarding for whatever position. You don't want it to search the web. You want it to be the knowledge base of the files that you have, So it just depends on what it is that you're building out, whether you want that web version on or not. But if it's something where you really don't want it to mess up, I would shut off the web version.
All right. Well, I just want to quickly go over November home price appreciation came out today. Case-Shiller and FHFA. So just a reminder that FHFA does not include jumbo or cash. They were up 4.2%.
What was the number?
Year over year. What?
What was the number?
Price appreciation.
No, what was the number?
4.2.
4.2%.
Yeah.
And year over year. Case-Shiller was up 3.8% year over year. Just to recap, MBS Highway's projection for 2025 appreciation is around 4.5%. So we're looking good. And these are numbers from, a time of year that isn't exactly the busiest. So this is promising in my opinion. We also got existing home sales for December. And we were up 2.2% month over month, annualized pace of 4.24 million units, which is and up 9.3% year over year. Also interesting to note that the properties that sold above list 16%, which is the same as last year. First time home buyers are 31% of the market, which is compared to 29% last year. Cash buyers are 28% of the market, 29% last year. And investors are 16% of the market. And that's the same as last year. And typically the investors are somewhere between 16, 17, 18% of the market. Like these are not big variance
Healthy.
in what normal is. And then also, we keep beating this drum where, we had all of these articles about, oh my God, the inventory is going up. Oh my God, oh my God. And the reality is we are still so well below what normal
Right.
inventory rates are for in most of the country. So we're way below pre-pandemic levels, and the new home sales are not keeping up at all, or the builders, with the pace of household formation. So it's really, really important to remember that the prices keep going up. It is not, I mean, waiting for the rates is a fool's errand. And again, we have been like beating everyone over the head with that for literally years. And just make sure you understand it enough so you can convey that to your borrowers so that they understand it. And they know that waiting is not the way forward, and focusing on the rate is not the way forward. We need to be talking about payment. Can you afford it? And also,
Do the numbers work?
What?
Do the numbers work?
Do the numbers work?
Right.
And by the way, also, you're so worried about the interest rates, but what about your insurance payments? Are those going to go through the roof? Will you have insurance?
Right.
You know what I mean? So if somebody owns a house and their insurance goes from $2,000 a month or a year to $6,000 a year, that's a game changer and a deal breaker for some people. Some people are going to lose their houses. So make sure you're talking through, where are you buying a house? Are you in the, I mean, although, we're famous for earthquakes in California, and everyone's always like, oh my God, how do you live with that? Maine just had a 3.2 earthquake yesterday. I couldn't believe it.
Really?
Yeah. And I'm
Wow.
like, okay, how many structures in Maine are made out of brick? They don't even allow that here anymore. And if you had brick, it had to be retrofitted. So anyway,
We had a 3.2 and it was really close 2 weeks ago. Boy, I felt that one, but it was because it was really close to
it was like practically underneath Kevin. I mean, it was at the San Francisco Zoo, which is what, 10 miles from you?
No, it's more like 4 or 5
I'll
miles.
take
Okay.
the couple days of cold weather that we had in Florida here.
You
I
have
was in
hurricanes.
Finland. They asked me the question.
Hurricanes. I mean, there's nothing more terrifying than a hurricane.
I live in a van. I just go wherever it's nice. That's the nice thing.
Oh my God. I'm like, oh my God, don't tell me that's more comforting. Tornadoes, hurricanes, locusts, whatever, humidity, big humongous bugs that can eat you in the night. Geez Louise. But that's just my understanding, right? I also thought was interesting to note that CoreLogic's rent index, their blended, which is new and renewals together, it was up 1.5%, which is better than the 1.7% it was before. The new rents are all negative. Like those numbers are very
And it's
consistent.
finally going to start filtering through, and has a little bit, and in the inflation numbers. And so that'll be something to look forward to.
From your mouth to God's ears. Yeah. So apartment rents had new rents for January, had new rents down 0.2%, 0.5% year over year. That number has been negative since 2023, which that's something. Because do you remember when rents were going up like, I don't know, 1,000,000% every time we looked? It was terrifying. So anyway, that is really moderated. That's helping our inflation numbers too. So again, hang on to your socks, people, because it'll be interesting to see what the Fed says tomorrow, see if Uncle Jerome is in a good mood, and see what happens with PCE on Friday. And with that being said, Megan, is there anything you'd like to leave us with at the end?
Well, be sure to watch the morning update video. We will definitely keep you posted on everything that goes on with the Fed and everything else that could potentially impact the markets. And as always, I am here to help answer any questions that you all might have. And thank you guys for having me on. And I just want to leave you guys with just AI is part of your toolbox. Okay. So think about this and get curious about it. And listen, it's so easy to get overwhelmed. Go through, identify your pain points, and pick one.
Yeah.
And pick one and start there.
Yeah, exactly. And we have a question in the chat about capital gains. We'll cover that next week. And with that being said, we love you, Megan. Thank you so much. And it's so good to feel good about this and to understand that this is not scary. This is, even yesterday's market correction, that even isn't, it's not scary. it is a good
good
thing
thing.
for us overall, and it's just a little bump in the road yesterday, and we're gonna get through it. So with
Yes.
all that being said, thank you, thank you, thank you from the bottom of our hearts. Everyone, go get a loan. They're out there. Go find a hard
Yeah.
one no one else wants to work on. That's the way forward. All right, kiddies, have a great one. We'll talk to you later. Next week, Mark McCardle live, CFPB. It's the
In person.
only thing we cannot put on on YouTube. Oh my
Zoom.
God, I cannot believe I almost forgot. So yes, he is next week live. It's the only way to watch it, and it's always so fun. So make sure you don't miss it. Okay, that's it really this time. Okay, bye guys.